Everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we'll be talking about criminal law. We'll be looking into ethics and the ethical code. We'll also delve straight into the elements common to section 98 and 116 of the criminal code, and we'll talk about money laundering and electronic evidence. Okay, so first of all, we all know that criminal law is the law that guides one or the citizen of a country against committing criminal offenses, because we know criminal offenses is an offense that is committed against the state, yeah, and then they are ruled out offenses for anyone that commits that any particular offense. They are ruled out offenses for it. So just like it says here, criminal law sets out the types of behavior that are forbidden at risk of punishment, right? So we're going to be looking at ethics, because from the very first video I published, I told us that there's a difference between ethics and law. Ethics is more persuasive, right? And we'll find that ethics is mostly an acceptable mode of conduct or behavior in a given society. So that's the essence of criminal law. Criminal law is to just ensure that everybody is actually doing the right thing and not putting in any forbidden act or character, right? Hope we're getting it. And then we'll talk about ethical code. Ethical code is now what regulates, right, or it regulates the conduct of professionals in a given profession or body, or even the clients in their dealing, right? So for instance, now we have ICAN, and we know that ICAN has its set of standards, right, that every member ought to follow, right, which is the ethical code for accountants. Okay, so let's talk about theft. Theft generally is looking at stealing, yeah, and then from section 383 subsection 1 of the code, criminal code, it says theft is a person who fraudulently takes anything capable of being stolen or fraudulently converts it to his own use. So the key word here is take and convert. So when someone is in the act of taking or converting something to its own use, it can actually be termed as theft. And we know what again is take. To take something, we can actually confuse this word here. The essence, the word take, is just like saying you moving a thing, yeah, moving a thing to deprive someone from using it, right? It may not necessarily be that you move the item completely, right, but you move a thing from where it was to another place. It is still taking. So when we join taking and converting, we are looking at stealing. So let's move straight to the element of fraud. What are those things that will term as fraud, right? When the person that is actually either taking or converting an object does so with an intention to permanently deprive the owner of that object, then we term it as stealing, right? And also when he does it to deprive a person who has any special property in the thing or such property, we also term it as stealing. You get? And then there are a couple of other things here. I highlighted that an intent to part with a thing on a condition as to its return, which the person taking or converting it may be unable to perform. You're taking out something and then you are giving condition that you're going to return it, and then at the end of the day you're actually not going to do it. So your intention was not actually to return it in the first place. You told the person you return it, but you didn't, right? You stole the thing, right? So you can actually read out other elements that makes a scenario looks like stealing. So but then it's not everything that is capable of being stolen. There's some things that are actually not capable of being stolen. But the criminal code made us to understand that every inanimate thing, whatever which is the property of any person and which is movable, is capable of being stolen. You get? So you can't come and say someone stole your land, because land you cannot move it. You get? So that is it. And then what is the whole idea of an offense if there is of a law if there will be no punishment, right? So now the punishments for the different kinds of offenses, from fraud, now we know that there is no single general offense of fraud, but there are a number of offenses that are fraud related. So what are those things that we can term as fraud? One is false pretenses, and this has to do with deceit, right? It has to do with deceit. You deceive someone to covet or convert his own thing. That is false pretense. Another one is cheating, saying something as though it was in order to trick someone, right? To get that thing. So you're fraudulently tricking someone to believing that, or you're fraudulently tricking someone to obtain his thing, right? And then this offense is misdemeanor and is punishable with 2 years custodian. It's actually having this custodian punishment, which is imprisonment for 2 years, right? Another one is forgery, obtaining property or credit by means of dishonored check. Yeah, we also have fraudulent false accounting. Now, this fraudulent false accounting is more or less, it has different ways that you actually term it as fraudulent false accounting. The first is when you destroy, alter, mutilate, or falsify any book, document, valuable security, or account which belongs to or is in the possession of his employer or has been received by him on account of his employer, or any entry in such book, documentary, or account, or is privy to such to any such to any such. And let me just pause here. It's just like saying when you mutilate a book, right? An official document, you mutilate an official document, then you're actually talking about fraudulent false accounting, right? Or when you make a false entry into a book, into an account, you're talking about false accounting. When you omit something that is material to a book or to an account, it is false accounting, right? So these are the different elements that you would say that this is false accounting. Now let's look at bribery, right? Now bribery has to now do with a person holding a public office, right? This one now is particularly to officials, public officials, and it is most times we see it in our everyday lives. We talk about it as corruption, yeah. And then this is where we'll point out the two sections of the criminal code that is relating to this bribery. Okay, so the essential difference between the section 98 and section 166, right, is that in section 98 the duties of a public officer in question must not touch the administration of justice, but in section 116 it must be a peace official or an officer, sorry to say, it must be a public servant employed in any capacity for the prosecution or detention of punishment of offenders, right? And I want us to understand these differences, because when someone is actually caught with this act, a public office officer actually caught under this act, the person should know that it's not a child's play. You're liable under section 98 to 7 years imprisonment. And then if it's section 116, it's 14 years imprisonment, because the corruption we're talking about here in section 116 affects justice in some way. So it's a serious case, right? So let's look at the elements common to both section 98 and section 116 of the criminal code. Okay, first we must know that the act must be done corruptly. There must be a corruption in it. Yeah, there must be a situation where someone offered to give or something, or a money is being demanded by a public officer for a service, an act of service, right? So those are the things that are common to section 98 and section 116 of the criminal code, right? And then there is money laundering, which is actually regulated by the Money Laundering Prohibition Act of 2011. And there are peculiar things that are contained in this act. First, we start with the limitations of the amount of cash payments. We ought to know. Now we find this question more in ICAN ICAN past questions, right? In the objective part where they'll ask, okay, for what are the limitations to the transfer of cash for an individual? We made to understand that it's 5 million naira or its equivalent, or 10 million naira of its equivalent. Now this question will pop up most times. I've seen this question most often in the ICAN study past questions. Yeah, so it's best for us to put it to note. And if it's an international transfer, we ought to know that the limitation is 10,000 US dollars or its equivalent, right? So I want you to take a look at the identification of customers. I may not be talking about it in this video, right? I just want to go straight to I want to go straight to this mandatory disclosure by financial institution. Now the thing is, This money laundering thing is actually a thing in Nigeria and all over the world, right? So someone is actually um when someone is actually going beyond the limitations which the act provide, they are fine if the banks do not disclose, or any financial institution do not disclose. They are fines, and that fine is 250,000 naira, right, and no more than 1 million naira for each day this contravention continues. So when a bank or a financial institution don't actually report to the EFCC, right, then there is a problem. They will fine them 250,000 for each day this contravention continues. That's why there is this surveillance of bank accounts, right? The surveillance of bank account where the EFCC, yeah, the EFCC, actually is a section is section 13 sub 1 of the act that provides it for the EFCC, for other regulatory bodies like the NDLEA, like the CBN, right? So they put this thing in place to place any bank account or any account comparable to a bank account under surveillance, yeah, to obtain access to any suspected computer system. Like there are times when, for instance, I just want to bring up this example. It's not actually related to it in a way, but I think we can find something out of this. There are times when we would transfer wrongly to an account, right? We'll transfer wrongly to an account. Let's say maybe 500,000 naira to an account, and we are crying as to we don't know how to get our money back and all that. And then we can go to the police, for instance, and tell the police that, see, we wrongly transfer money to this account. There is something that the police will do. They will apply to the courts, the federal high court, to give them that order to place the account which the money was transferred to on surveillance. Now, when they place that account on surveillance, you find out that it's something called post no debit. Right? I don't want to go further in this. Let me just continue. But I'm just trying to point something as to placing an account under surveillance, so we can understand section 13 of the Money Laundering Act of 2011. Right? But then there are offenses, like I mentioned outrightly, also for money laundering too. There are offenses, right? And I want us to look at it. I want us to look at it. I may not read everything. But I want us to, on our own, check it. But we should know that there is a custodian offense. When I say custodian, I'm talking about conviction or imprisonment. Yeah, there's not less than 5 years imprisonment. Yeah, and no more than 10 years. So between 5 to 10 years for someone that commits the act of money laundering, you actually sentenced to um 5 to 10 years imprisonment. And if you are a body corporate, then you might be the court might grant an order to wind up your business. So it's safe to understand this. So now let's move straight to electronic evidence. I know at this point now I've been able to talk about criminal law, ethics, right, the ethical code, and I've also been able to identify um the different behavior that is not permitted in a country, right? As to false entry, false accounting, fraudulent false accounting, as to stealing, as to bribery for public officials, and then I've been able to pinpoint the offenses that comes alongside with it. So I'm going to go straight to electronic device. Please like my channel, subscribe, right? And the essence of all this is to share my ideas, to share my research as to what I've actually done so far in preparation for my ICAN exam in May 2024. Right, so let us make this very interesting. Comment, engage, ask questions, and you can reach out to me on WhatsApp. So now for the electronic device, we'll find out that any evidence produced by a computer can actually be admitted under the courts. Sorry, can actually be admitted to the court of law. Yeah, insofar it follows these conditions in subsection 1 of that same section, that the document that is containing the statement was produced by the computer during a period over which the computer was used. Now I've seen this question pop up in past question a whole lot of times, right? We should know that there are conditions as to when a court can admit an evidence under that was produced by a computer. So we should know that the document which we're talking about must be produced by that computer during the period which the computer was used to store information, right? And also over that period, there it was regular that over that period, a lot of things were supplied to the computer in the ordinary course of those activities, right? And throughout the material part of that period, the computer was operating well, so there was no malfunction, right? So um you find out that these are conditions. Sometimes you see where the past question will let us to you give questions like give three conditions as to when and evidence and electronic evidence can be admissible in court, right? So we should actually highlight that part. We should highlight that part. Okay. And also you can also generate um evidence by email, right? You can generate evidence by all of them are electronically based. So yes, also from websites, from web pages, from GSM phones, all these things are now they are now according to the Evidence Act of 2011. You can actually use this as an evidence in the court of law, even the from the automated teller machines. You can use it, right? Okay. And now lastly, let's talk about e-signatures. So more or less, when someone adopts a content, when someone adopts a content virtually, it can actually be seen as an e-signature. You get e-signature is just more or less like and it can be an electronic sound, it can be a symbol, it can be something attached to a file or so. So but when you adopt it, right, when you adopt it, it's just more or less like a seal, just like you are signing something, you are giving your approval over something. You get, so that is just what e-signature is. But it's actually admissible on virtual space. So liken it to signatures, but on virtual space. All right. So yes, the role of an accountant as an expert witness in computer fraud situation. Now these questions have have, have been popping. I've been popping, and it's the last thing I'm going to talk about. So an accountant role as an expert in a computer fraud situation is that it includes now the roles. I'm listing the roles. The roles include satisfying the court that the document sought to be tendered was generated in the ordinary course of business. It's more or less like saying all those things we listed in the conditions. You satisfy the court that yes, it is true. Yeah, you actually attested to the fact that it is true. You also satisfy to the court that the document is original and is a certified true copy. And lastly, um, the accountant's function must be related to the subject matter. Sorry, yes, must be related to the subject matter of the document. This is because expert witness will not be cross-examined with a view of discrediting the conclusions reached by him. So he must be an expert in that subject matter. It's not just getting an accountant that don't know what we're talking about in that instance. So that is all to it for criminal law. In the next video, we'll be talking about other things. We're looking at other part of the study pack. So I want you to stay with me. I want you to engage, subscribe, and reach out to if you can on WhatsApp. I wish us good luck in our exams.